Hello, boys and girls. Today our guest is Namrah Habib. She has a bachelor's in Aerospace and Chemical Engineering, and she is an intern at NASA. We had a very amazing conversation that went from everything from visiting Mars, exploring space, and obviously flat Earth. We have to talk to a scientist about flat Earth, the space turtle carrying Earth, and also obviously hollow Earth. So I hope you guys enjoy. And we're live. Namrah. How do you pronounce your last name?
Habib.
Habib? Mm-hmm. Habib? Okay. Yeah. Thank you for doing this, man. I'm super excited. So, like I said, like the whole point of this podcast is to introduce the amazing people that I know to the world. And you're one of them. So, I'm very excited to have you, man. You are trying to go to Mars.
Yes.
That is so fucking crazy.
I want to do Jiujitsu on Mars.
Okay, it's impossible, first of all.
No, it's going to happen. There's still gravity on Mars.
Okay,
so it can happen.
Okay, isn't it like 1/3 of the gravity in Mars?
1/3. I don't know off the top of my head. Something like that.
Something like that. So it's like very little gravity in Mars compared to Earth.
No, it might be more.
No, there's no way. Yeah. I'm a nerd. Okay. I know this thing.
Okay.
You're the one trying to go to Mars, not me.
Yeah, but like I focus more on like how to get to Mars, not the.
Right. So your entire focus and how you're trying to go to Mars is you're tied into the development of the rockets.
Yeah, SLS, which is Space Launch System.
Okay.
Which is the rocket that NASA's building to go to places beyond low Earth orbit.
So how involved in that? What are you doing regarding that? Like, what's your involvement in that?
So, when I first got involved, it was 2 years ago, 2015. But I was mostly looking at design and construction requirements and saying like, these are the screws we're going to use to fit these parts together. So, literally design and construction, basic things like screws, bolts, pressure testing, making sure things don't blow up. That's where I started. Now,
so that's how meticulous it gets. Like there's got to be like a special type of screw that gets put into the shuttle.
And it has to be space certified. Like you have to say this screw has been tested that it's not going to break in space, and this is like what NASA uses. So it's like the NASA standard.
Really? Mm-hmm. That is so great. What makes a screw space certifiable? Like what does it have to be able to withstand? Like what's it forces?
It has to be able to withstand launch forces, but it's like. I honestly don't know what makes it certifiable, because to me, a space-certified screw and a normal screw look the same.
Right. They look the same, but the what it's made out of, and obviously the resistance of the pressure, right?
I think it's like most of the time screws for space hardware are made out of steel, so it's you're pretty much using steel or like depending on the parts of what you're building. Like aluminum is often also used to save weight, but mostly like steel for like things that hold stuff together, or something that has to withstand high pressure, like thermal effects, will definitely be like a harder metal.
That is so crazy. So you are definitely through the development of the rocket itself. That's how you're trying to go to NASA, or that's how you're trying to go to Mars.
Yes.
What is your fascination with going to Mars? Why are you trying to leave this beautiful planet?
Well, it's not just Mars. It's like exploration. I wanna see the rest of the solar system and like study the rest of the solar system. There's so much we don't know, and like rovers like Curiosity show us things like, why are there dunes on Mars? Like what the fuck? This is just weird.
Right. Let me ask you something. If we were going somewhere else, if it wasn't Mars, you would still want to go. If we were going to Jupiter, you'd still want to go.
Yeah, there's a huge giant storm on Jupiter. Why? Or like even Titan and Enceladus, they get a lot of attention because Titan has a methanogenic cycle, which is it's very, very similar to Earth, but it's like how we have water, and like water evaporates into our atmosphere and then it rains down and we have lakes. Titan has methane, and it's the same thing.
That's a little thing. So I remember this picture where it looked like a lake, and it looked like this little sparkle, this white sparkle. They didn't know what it was, right? Because then it appeared, it disappeared, and then they took another picture, and when they realized it was tidal, right? It was tidal waves that were causing the appearance and disappearance of an island. So this is the first island discovered in another planet.
Yeah. So it's like things like that, like how does this happen? And if we explore other planets, we can also learn more about Earth, like stuff we can't just learn from living here because we live here.
Right. Yeah. But we're also using certain specific parts of Earth to learn about how life could exist somewhere else, right? So, for example, there is, for example, like in deep sea, we didn't think that life could exist at that point with the smokers, right? With the volcanic, not where they're spewing out lava, but they're spewing out pretty much thermal, like hot water. And we didn't think life was possible at that depth and at that temperature, but it is.
Yeah.
We found that. So we're thinking, okay, life could exist in all these different locations. Are we ready to discover life somewhere else and not fucking kill it?
That is a great question. I think that's a more political question. Right. I say NASA's ready for that. Outside of NASA and outside of like the space industry in general, like other space exploration companies, I cannot say for certain that like we won't destroy it.
Yeah, that's true. So, but it's also very interesting how far NASA goes to protect life in other locations, life in other planets, right? So, for example, they have destroyed satellites, right? Just because they're saying, okay, so for example, they crashed it into Jupiter.
Yeah.
Yeah, they crashed into Jupiter, so because the contaminants that it had couldn't land in a place where there's water and potential life, so they destroyed it.
Yep.
You know?
It's because it's like whatever we build on Earth obviously has the microbes and bacteria and like contamination from Earth. So we're taking that into space, and if we think there's life on Enceladus or Titan,
we don't want to kill it.
Yeah. If we crash it into it, we could be detecting our own life, and then we're thinking like, hey, there's life, but in fact it's just a life that we've taken. Or it could be like we contaminated what was there and destroyed it. So it goes both ways, and so we have to consider that. Whereas like with Jupiter was a safer target because we're more certain that there's less chance of life on Jupiter than there is on Titan and Enceladus.
What made it that? Just because it's such a giant storm and it's mostly gas, and we think it's like a super small solid core.
Yep.
Okay, so we just said, okay, it's just a giant storm. There's no way life can develop there.
Kind of. It was like between looking at Enceladus and Jupiter or Titan and Jupiter, it's like there's a methanogenic cycle on Titan and there's frozen lakes on Enceladus. So between these two, there's more possibility for life versus the storm on Jupiter.
Right.
So it was kind of like the
lesser evil. Okay, that makes sense, man. That's so crazy. What's the challenge to become an astronaut? Like, what challenges are you facing in 2017, about to be 2018, to become an astronaut?
My challenge is deciding what to do in my near future. So I'm going to graduate from the U of A in May, and then
congrats, man. What's your degree going to be at?
It's a double major in chemical and aerospace engineering.
Wow. It's a lot of numbers there.
Yep, it's great. I love it.
Okay. Talking to the guy that pre-algebra right there. You have questions, I can help.
Chemistry, space, it's beautiful, and it all comes together. It's so beautiful.
Well, because it's so funny, because you and I, we've nerded out. We've talked a lot about like space and life and NASA and all sorts of stuff, but I'm on the other side of the spectrum where it's like I don't have the patience to like learn the numbers and the this and the that and carry the zero and everything else. Give me the final product. Show me what. So what a lot of people don't know is when they talk about, for example, they're taking a picture of the black hole, the center of the universe, and it's actually not a picture. Like we're not taking a picture. We're taking numbers. We're listening to noise.
Yeah.
And we're going to translate that into an image. That's so crazy. So I'm that guy. I'm the guy that is super interested in learning everything there is about the massive black hole, the center of our galaxy, without any other math. Don't bother me with it. Don't care about it. You know, like obviously, like I'm very excited. Like what's its mass? Like how much can it pull? I'm very interested in that. I think I'm capable of grasping when they talk about like it has the weight of 1,000 million suns, and I can grasp the numbers, but like to sit there and like I said, and like they're talking about how, because they've taken the data, now it's going to take years to actually collect the hard drives worldwide, bring it all together and start putting the numbers together and overlapping, and overlapping these numbers and that's how the image is going to emerge of this supermassive black hole at the center of a galaxy.
Yep.
It's so powerful and so crazy. The image, I think that if there's an image that has captivated my imagination, it's been that image where they have those stars at the center of a galaxy, and there's nothing, and they're in rotation around nothingness. And there's this one star that is bigger than our sun that is just getting flung. And like this is its loop. It's like it comes in, it approaches some object that is not there, and then it gets thrown back out into space, and then it gets pulled back. And those are stars bigger than ours. And there's something so big that's making them, or not so big in size, but in density that's making them act that way. And I'm fascinated by that image.
It's a beautiful image. I totally know what you're talking about.
Right? I nerded out. I had to find it. I had to save it. I found it on Instagram, and I had to save it. And it's just every once in a while, you just look at it and just watch those little dots, just like move around. It's so crazy to understand that it's a star bigger than ours getting thrown around in space. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what that's going to look like, even though we have an idea of what it's going to look like based on the science that we have already. So in that movie with Matthew McConaughey, what's the name of that movie?
Matt McConaughey?
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey. They go to space.
There's a lot of movies with people going to space.
Not with Matthew McConaughey.
I don't know who Matthew McConaughey is.
It's the one where they have the image of the black hole, and it got a lot of criticism, but it got a lot of praises from the science community, because that was the image of a black hole, how it was disturbing light, where it wasn't just light going around it, but it had like a disk around it and then another circle. It was phenomenal. So to me, like when I went to watch that movie, it wasn't just like I'm watching an action movie. We're pretty certain that's what it's going to look like. So I was super excited about that. But so back to the challenge. Your challenge is to figure out what to do in the next 10 years of your life to ensure you're in that rocket.
Not even just the next 10 years, like the next year. This is a transition point. So it's,
oh my God.
And there's so many options. Like I could go on to grad school, but like what should I study in grad school? I could do more rockets. I could study planets, study like different methods on how we can study other planets. It's just, there's a lot to consider. And there's also like, do I want to take a gap year and just work for NASA for a year, or work for another company like the Smithsonian? So it's just, or even like SpaceX or Blue Origin, and just like take some time off. So I don't know. There's
And you have already worked for NASA.
Wait.
You already did, right? Like
yes.
a summer, you went to work for them?
Yep. So this last summer, and then 2 summers ago, so summer of 2015 and this last summer, I was at NASA. Yep.
What was it like, man? So that's your goal, and then all of a sudden you get a call from NASA saying, come and work for us. What was it like?
It was, well, okay, so my first time when I got the offer, and it was like in May of 2015, I was really sad because I was like, nobody wants to hire me. I'm going to be in Tucson this summer doing nothing. It's going to be really depressing. And that morning I got 2 offers. And the first one was a call from NASA, and I was just like,
did you think it was a prank? So how does the call come in? Does it come as a private number? It's a blog number?
It was just like a number from Alabama. And I was like, I don't know anybody from Alabama,
right.
But whatever, I'll answer.
Okay, you took it.
Yeah.
Right, so you took it, you answered.
Yeah.
And do you think people are pranking you?
I did. I was like, wait, you're asking for Namrah Habib? Like,
yeah.
We're talking about the same person.
Yeah, I'm Namrah. Yeah.
And it was just like, I was just like dumbstruck. I was like, I can't believe they just hired me.
They just called me.
Yeah. And it was like, that's it, I got it. And like that whole entire day, I don't even remember the rest of the day. I was like, this is it, I got it.
No way, man.
I was so happy that day. I was like, I finally made it. And it's like, just the first
You called your
step, too.
parents, I'm sure, right? You were like...
Mm-hmm. I called my mom like the instant after. I was like, Mom, guess what just happened to me?
Did they grasp the significance of it? The significance that it had in your life? Or were they like, cool, whatever?
My dad was kind of like, cool, whatever. Namrah's just being Namrah. And...
So parents are funny, man. In 1996, so I was entering a lot of like kickboxing championships, right? Mm-hmm. And this is just in Tucson, so it's like a super small circuit, where back in the day, like you were doing kickboxing / karate, and the rules really changed depending on who you were fighting. Like you were fighting this guy, and they were like, "Hey, man, he's down to do some kickboxing." So we had headgear and gloves, and then if the guy was okay with it, the headgear came off, and then you're just throwing, Mm-hmm. And then the next guy within the same tournament. So if you beat him within the same tournament, you move on, and the next guy is like, they just want to do like point karate. So you have to put the headgear back on, and it was just really weird. But So I won at 16. I won the grand championship, and it was a trophy that at 16 is like this big, and it was like the biggest thing I ever won at the time, you know. So I came home, and my buddies, I had gone with a couple of friends. There's like 4 or 5 of them, and they are looking for a way to celebrate it with me because they're so happy. And I got home, and I walk in through the door, and I literally stood at the door like holding the trophy, and I'm smiling, I have a smile on my face. And my parents are, we lived in it was a dark period in our time. We had a super small apartment. Our family nucleus is like falling apart, But I got this look where I come in with the trophy, and then they're like, "Hey," and that was it. I got an A. That was it. I was so pissed, man. I was so pissed. I was kind of like, because you're still a kid, so I wanted to cry. So I was like, "These motherfuckers." So I put the trophy in my room and I left. So I totally get where parents sometimes they don't grasp like what means so much to you. Like this is an achievement, you know?
And I made a big deal about going to Alabama that summer. I was like, I'm going to Alabama, and my parents were like, "It's Alabama." Like,
I'll call you every day. No, you don't have to, baby. It's okay. Just Texas.
Yeah, they're like, you're going to like the middle of the South. What are you gonna like? Fine.
Fucking parents, man. They're funny. That's awesome, man. So, Mars. So you go to Mars. How close are we? Because the mission just got pushed back. Because originally they has a 2020, right? Or 2021.
It was Mars 2020. Yeah.
And they were like, okay, we're not going to make 2020.
Yeah, there's a lot of like instrument problems. So a lot of the instruments that are proposed to be on Mars 2020 are having like engineering difficulties. And so they're like trying to keep schedule as close to like a 2020 launch as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
We need a date, right? We need a date to say, okay, this is what we're shooting for. But I think it's great that they're being realistic and saying 2020 is not going to happen. So what is it now? It's 2023?
I think they're still trying to push for 2021.
2021. So it got pushed back a year.
But like,
the instruments are not there.
no.
Yeah. What are we trying to bring? Like when the first rocket that gets there, what are we trying to bring to Mars? Is it just instruments to start studying the atmosphere with humans on the floor doing the...
Well, like Mars 2020 is a rover.
Okay.
Or it'll be like a spacecraft and a rover. But then SLS is also planned to go to Mars at some point in the future. So SLS was supposed to launch this year in December, which since December's over, it didn't.
They have 2 days.
Yes, they have 2 days, but it's probably not going to launch.
Okay.
And I think it's now scheduled to launch in 2019.
Right.
And so the idea that when SLS first goes there, it'll take a human crew to Mars. But SLS will have like a launch probably to an asteroid or something before to prove that, hey, it's safe enough that we can ride it somewhere closer, maybe even go to the moon before Mars to show that, like, hey, this rocket's good enough, we can take it to Mars. Or like Orion can take us
SLS? Now, what's SLS? It's not NASA?
It is NASA.
It is NASA?
Yeah.
Okay.
SpaceX also has one, the Falcon Heavy, which was also supposed to launch in December of this year, but still has not.
So what is the difference between this rocket and the other rocket? So they retired the shuttle. So
Yes.
is SLS supposed to replace the shuttle?
Not really, because SLS isn't reusable like Shuttle was.
Okay.
SLS just has more lift capacity. So it's
Okay.
like bigger and better, and it can take more things into space. It can take
Okay.
more weight into space. So the last rocket that we had that even had like a similar lift capacity was the Saturn V,
Okay.
which took us to the moon.
So what is the concern of going to, using the SLS and going to the moon? Like we already went to the moon.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
But that's like a political thing. Like for some reason, people in politics want us to go back to the moon, and it's I guess maybe by going back to the moon, it's meant to be like a morale booster that hey, we can still do this, so we can go to Mars beyond. But then Trump also has his administration. He signed like I think I don't know what it's called when president signs an order saying that NASA's going to do this. So he signed an order saying NASA has to go to Mars.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
But no deadline, right? So okay, they're not saying. But this is exactly what NASA has to focus.
So NASA's focus is in sending things out of.
Okay, so we don't need to go to SLS. Doesn't need to go to the moon.
It doesn't.
SLS could just go maybe to like a nearby.
Yeah, it could go to near Earth asteroid. It could go to Enceladus. It could go to Europa, Mars. SLS is literally designed to be big enough that it can take us anywhere beyond in our solar system, beyond low Earth orbit.
That is so crazy, man. So we go to Mars with the human crew. Are we staying? Are we just spending a couple of days there, or are we leaving somebody behind?
See, that's not planned yet. So it could be, well, probably not leaving somebody behind. They'll they'll probably have some sort of mission, probably take some samples, do some like rock geology analysis, rock science.
Right.
And probably look at like terraforming strategies, because that's like.
So it's just grabbing as much
now.
information with humans on
Yeah.
with boots on the ground, and then come back with that information saying, okay, this is a technology that we need to terraform or to inhabit Mars.
Yeah. So it definitely starts small for NASA. NASA wouldn't just like leave people there. SpaceX kind of has a different plan. They're like, we're just gonna send people there. We're gonna send Elon Musk's car there, and we're just gonna like go for it. But they have their own challenges to overcome because they're proposing to like build a refueling station and make launches happen as frequently as possible.
Refueling stations in space?
On Mars.
On Mars.
On Mars. So they're saying like we're gonna go to Mars. We're gonna be able to like
Refuel in Mars.
refuel on Mars and then come back to Earth and like start creating this like.
Shit, why come back to
bus
Earth? Go
system.
somewhere else.
I don't know. It's SpaceX. They're plan. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe like you always want to come back home, visit home. I get that.
Have you heard? Because I don't know if you always want to come back home. I was listening to this interview with this astronaut, and he was talking about how quickly you separate from Earth, from the people there. Because so he's talking about like they had been up there for a couple of months, and at the beginning it was like Houston is saying this, or Control is saying this, Martha is saying this, so on and so forth. And he said that after a couple of months of just orbiting, you're already starting to detach, and then all of a sudden there was a transmission that came from Earth. And that's exactly how he said it. Like he looks at the rest of the crew and goes, hey guys, Earth is saying we have to do ABC. And that's when it dawned on him. Like he had already started separating from Earth. So if we send a crew, if we have, because that's exactly what happened with the Europeans. They came to America. Like it wasn't, hey, home is saying this. Now it was like Europe is saying this. So it happens like that. Like you go to Mars and you're going to have people that go, Earth wants us to do this. Like we're not doing that. You know, like if they become independent enough, you're gonna run into that where they're saying we're our own colony. We have to control our own future. You know, if we're here to stay, this is what we want. And that's gonna be interesting when it happens. Like if we're successfully occupying or inhabiting Mars, it's gonna be interesting when that first conversation happens of, hey guys, we need you to do this, and Mars goes, no. We're not doing that. That's so crazy.
That is super crazy.
That's so crazy, but it'll happen. It'll happen like that. Because like I said, it happened with this astronaut that he was just orbiting, and they get that one transmission, and I mean, within months he was already separated from Earth. You know, that's so crazy, man. That is so crazy. So, terraforming. Do we really want to do that?
I think so.
To Mars?
Well, okay, I think Mars is really, really neat because if you look at it, Mars is kind of like a dead planet.
Right.
There-
The core is dead, so it has
Core is
no magnetic field. First of all,
Yep. That's also why it doesn't have doesn't have like a good thick of an atmosphere as Earth.
because it just keeps escaping.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that could happen to Earth too. Like we don't know what caused the magnetic field to stop.
Right. Well,
Or
we're
like
pretty sure
what
that
the
it's
core
the
is.
solidifying of the core, right? We're pretty sure. This is what's so crazy about it is like people talk about the Earth and its core like it's known science. We've been there. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know what's at the center of the Earth and how that magnetic field works. We think it's nickel, but we don't know. So it's pretty interesting, man.
And that could happen any day to Earth. Like why did it solidify? Why then?
Wouldn't
what
it give us
caused it to-
warning though? Like if
Would
it, I don't know. Like
Yeah,
you're the
like-
science.
like,
You're the
I-
scientist.
We don't know what happened to Mars, so we don't know if it gave it Mars warning.
Right.
So it's like,
If all of a sudden it just solidifies and we're done.
yeah, but so like terraforming
But
Mars.
our moon is probably keeping our core molten too, because he tugs on it.
Yeah,
it
but
tugs on the
Mars
Earth.
has moons too.
Yeah, but they're not big enough and they're not close enough, like our moon.
Well, Mars has multiple moons, and some are bigger than our moon.
But are they close enough?
I don't know, they're at varying distances.
Right. That's
So
so
it's
crazy.
like, like why? What caused it?
Right.
You have to like, it's like things like this. Like, do we really know this, or do we just like say we know this?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is like we don't know that. So terraforming Mars.
But like, if
It would be cool to have a second planet where you just say, I want to, you know, right now people move to Vegas and they're like, I want a fresh start. They move to California, they move to whatever it is.
But like,
The people in the future could say, I want a fresh start, I'm moving to Mars.
They could, yeah.
They could.
They totally could. It'd be neat too. Be like, I'm done with Earth.
I'm done with Earth right now, so that would be awesome. That would be awesome. So terraforming, what's that process going to look like?
I think it's going to be really difficult. And like, but if we can successfully terraform Mars, we can say that we brought a dead planet back to a habitable condition. So like, if Earth dies, we could hypothetically do the same with Earth, right?
How about we just don't kill it?
But I mean,
That'd be great.
people are killing it.
Fuck, nonstop, man. Nonstop. I mean, look at me, I'm drinking a Rockstar. I'm sure that this is not positive for Earth. That is so nuts. So, the plans for terraforming Mars. I know that there's a bunch of different conversations about it, like nuking it. Like that was one of the things that Elon Musk took a bunch of heat for it.
Yeah.
Like he said, like let's just fucking nuke it. We can nuke it. We can melt the ice caps. We can warm it up.
That's what Japan wants to do too.
Japan wants to nuke it.
Yeah, Japan wants to nuke it. Japan nukes almost everything though, so. And
Well,
they
got nuked themselves, so I'm sure they're just dying to like nuke something back.
Their space agency is like really aggressive on how they approach things, and NASA's like very risk averse. Like it considers every possible situation and says that these are all the risks of it, and like what we're willing to accept versus what we're willing to not accept. JAXA's just like, screw this, we're just gonna do it.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the mentality behind that? Like, I mean, don't they understand that whatever we do to another planet, it has an effect on the rest of the world?
I think they know that, but it's also like, if they can do it and they're willing to accept the risk that another agency elsewhere in the world is not, and it works for them, they're willing to take that cost. So they're saying that
The
like,
cost of killing or, you know, re-killing planet, you know, Mars.
whatever cost it take, whatever the cost
Whatever
is.
it costs, like we're just
Yeah.
going to nuke and whatever it is.
Yeah, so they're like, if it works, then we're the ones who did it, and it's on us. But if it fails, it's also on us. So.
That's nuts,
And
man.
a lot of their missions do fail. So one of their like recent missions that failed was Hayabusa. It was an asteroid sample return mission, which NASA also has an asteroid sample return mission. So their spacecraft did collect a sample that wasn't contaminated, and it like their spacecraft broke, and they had so many technical difficulties. So now they have a Hayabusa 2, which is meant to like be a better version of the original Hayabusa, and they'll bring back a sample and be like, this is JAXA can do it. But they take a lot of risks. So they're like throwing projectiles into the asteroid to make dust come up to collect samples, and they're collecting from multiple sites to say that like, hey, even though we're doing this from multiple sites, we could get more science out of it if there's like a difference in different parts of the asteroid. Whereas NASA's like, no, we're going to focus all our energy in taking one sample properly. So it's like, it's a different perspective of like doing things, but it's like different space agencies approaches can be useful in that sense, because something we're not willing to take the risk on from like NASA or even SpaceX or other like space exploration industries, like another country might, and essentially like
We all benefit from
yeah.
it. We all benefit from it, but
So like, but
yeah.
we need all of us to make it happen, because terraforming another planet is not an easy job. So it's like everybody eventually will have to contribute. And like China has plans to go back to the moon, or to go to the moon, not back in their case. But they're developing something completely different from what the U.S. did. They're not even looking at what U.S. and Russia have. So they're going to develop new technology and do different things, and that can benefit us in the long run, saying that, hey, this is how China did it, so maybe we could use this to go to Mars or terraform Mars. So it's like, it's a play. Like, everyone has to contribute. It's not like a one-person job.
Okay, so going back to that conversation about the moon, if I understand correctly, they have actually discovered that the dust from the moon can be used as a fuel.
I'm not 100% positive on that. Like, I've heard that being said, but like I haven't followed up on it.
What is China wanting to do? I forget which nation it is, but there's somebody that's talking about actually colonizing the moon also.
Yeah.
right?
I think that's China.
It's China.
I'm pretty sure it's China.
And that's so interesting because I think right now is such a huge undertaking of trying to go to another planet, explore the universe, so on and so forth, that we're all kind of playing nice with one another, right? But if China plants a flag on the moon, what does the US do? You know, what does Japan do? Are we all in a panic now? Or are we all going to start fighting over the moon? Who does it belong to? And I know there's a society where it talks about there's a bunch of treaties as far as space doesn't belong to anybody, so on and so forth. But that doesn't really carry any weight. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, there's nobody that implements that.
There's nobody that implements, because like I said, because we're not there yet. But China goes to the moon. They plant that flag. And they say, we're going to start mining the moon. Fuck you guys. What are you going to do? And I think all of us, we're going to be like, are we going to declare war on the colony that's in the moon? Doing the job that they're being told to do? Like, what do we do? Do we use force? Do we start using sanctions? Like, we already know that sanctions don't mean shit to some of these countries because they'll let their people starve, you know? North Korea, prime example, like that soldier that defected.
Yeah.
He got shot in the gut, and when they were trying to do the surgery to save him, they discovered parasites they have never seen in his gut. Worms in his digestive system that have never seen. The scientists in South Korea were like, what the fuck? So that literally, as they're doing surgery, they're pulling worms out of this guy. And they've never seen that. So we know that countries ultimately don't, you know, a lot of times this financial restrictions, fines that we're putting on them, it doesn't mean anything to them. So if China's already isolated as it is. So if we try to say, okay, China, you know, we're gonna prohibit even more transactions, you know, global transactions with you. Fine, we're mining the moon. You know, what are you gonna do?
I think it's like, so some space agencies get along better with each other than like others. So us and China don't really get along, but then us and JAXA, or like us and the European Space Agency, we have like a lot of joint missions.
Okay, right.
So like,
well, we're part of this international space, right? The space station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like all from ISS, but it's like, I think if anything, if China went to the moon and they're like, we're gonna mine the moon, we're gonna start doing all of this, I think it'll push America to be like, hey, we can do this too, so why aren't we? So I think it'll start like another space race kind of situation, because that's like...
And that's really what creates science, right?
Yeah.
When it's that tension, that raise, that tension of, okay, they're doing it, we need to do it first.
Yeah, we need to be better, we need to prove we're still on top, because if we did it first, so we should still be on top, right?
Right, but the difference, like you said, like the difference is the U.S., because of its moral code, it's not willing to do certain things. Where like the Russian space station or the space program, don't give a fuck, man. They've sent people out there in crafts that were faulty. They knew that. They just needed to, like, that life was going to buy us this science. They knew this person was not going to come back. Well, they knew that they had a certainty this person was going to burn upon re-entry. And they still fucking threw him out there. And they didn't care. You know, so the U.S. is not willing to do that, I don't think.
I don't think we were willing to do that back in the original space race too.
Right.
Thinking like, hey, all the risks we took, they were unknown risks. Like, we weren't certain what was going to happen. So it was like, it could be good, it could be bad, but we don't really know, so we're just going to say it'll be in our favor. So, but like, there's still so much of that with space. Like, we don't know what's going to happen when we go to Mars. Are we going to be able to terraform it? Like, we don't know.
Will we survive? Isn't it, now again, talking about dust, the dust from Mars, it's toxic to the human. Yeah, that's what I've read.
But like, is it toxic to the skin? Is it like toxic if you...
To the breathing system.
Okay.
That's what I've read. It's toxic to the breathing system. So that's some of the things, like even if we terraform Mars, like what does that do to the soil?
Mm-hmm. But there's like, well, we can't breathe right now on Mars anyway, because...
Right.
Yeah.
There's not sufficient atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. So it's like one problem at a time.
One problem at a time. Okay, first of all, let's get there, build up stations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if we do Mars, I think that will be the jumping point to other things, because now our starting point won't be Earth. It'll be now. And first of all, like, people don't understand how hard it is to leave Earth's atmosphere.
No.
It's super hard.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. It has to do the weight, the angle, the pull, everything else. It's super hard. You're fighting less of that in Mars. So I think that a lot of people what they'll start doing is they'll start shipping materials to Mars, assemble there,
and then take it elsewhere.
and then take it somewhere else. Like our trip to Europa will probably be for Mars at some point, maybe. I don't know. So how certain are we that Europa has that ocean?
So it's like imaging and like different science instruments have shown that there is potential that it's there.
Okay. But we don't know.
But we don't really know.
Right.
So it's like we have to go back to see it. We have to go check it out.
So, but then again, that the danger of contaminating and destroying the life in Europa, right? Because you're talking about we would have to sterilize those instruments so much, and then how do you drill? How do you mine through the crust, right? The ice crust to get to where the ocean is, and now you have an instrument. Because I think one of the proposed instruments, it's like almost like this worm-like
Like
robot.
things,
Like this worm-like robot that can swim underneath the water and explore and see what life, if there is life right there, and obviously not only film it, but be able to obtain a lot of science from swimming around in that ocean. But you're bringing bacteria from Earth.
Yeah. So there's like when you send a spacecraft to another planet, you always have that risk that you're like taking bacteria from Earth, or you're taking something from Earth.
Right.
So like at that point, you have to consider like how much money do you want to spend on making sure that this is a clean instrument, and what you're going to use to clean it, because everything you use to clean it should also be documented, being like, hey, if we see like Teflon on Mars, is it the Teflon from the spacecraft, or is it like Teflon from Mars itself?
Right.
So it's like it becomes kind of a balance, and all those missions for Europa are taking that risk. They're saying that like, hey, we're going to sterilize it to this amount, and we're going to only use these select materials, because that way we know what's on our spacecraft when we take something to a different planet. So it's like at that point you have to accept that risk that you could be taking something from Earth.
And you could destroy the life on another planet.
Yeah.
That's so crazy, man.
But you want
That's
to
a huge burden.
Yeah, but you want to minimize that risk as much as possible. So you want to make sure that your spacecraft is as clean as it can be by by like our standards.
By our standards, yeah. So that is, I mean, that's a huge burden, because if you destroy life, I think you could secretly, like, you're always going to carry that. It's like if life dies in this planet, it's a decision that happened within this room of 6 people, and all of us said, let's do this. We're willing to take that risk. And you just destroy an entire planet. You destroy the ecosystem of an entire planet if you're careless.
If you're careless, yeah.
You know? So, but that's a huge burden, and people are willing to take it.
Yeah.
We're going to have to take it, right? We want to know.
We won't know
we want to know, right?
Yeah.
So how many astronauts have you had the opportunity to talk to and like get to know?
Ooh, that's a great question. So recently, I got a scholarship that has allowed me to go to a lot of networking events with astronauts. So I've gotten to meet a bunch of astronauts recently, which is really cool. So there's an astronaut that lives in Phoenix. His name's Ed Gibson, and he's been mentoring me.
No way.
Yeah, he's really nice. He's just very optimistic about going to Mars and Europa in particular, being like, hey, we're gonna actually do this, and he'll call me like once a month or like something like that, and we just talk. We're like, this is where I'm at. I don't know what to do. What should I do? And he's like, this is what I think you should do, Namrah. But just keep in mind, like, these are things you should consider. Or like, and sometimes we'll just like
that is
talk
so cool.
about.
It's so important to have a mentor, man. It's so important to have a mentor. Yeah,
It is
absolutely.
super important.
So, what missions did he fly?
So he flew the Skylab missions before International Space Station.
Right.
So that was when we were like transitioning from Moon to having a space station, and so he's really old to like kind of
Right.
Yeah.
We met, and I just so the world knows, because this is going to keep happening. I am great at stories. I'm so bad at names. But we met the astronaut that went to the moon and fell on his face. Young Joshua. Hey! Oh, he's got a headphones on. It's an older gentleman. I can't remember his name, but there's footage of him hopping around on the moon, and then he trips and he falls, and he like puts his hands, you know, obviously to catch himself, but like his face shield came like this close from a rock.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so we met him. There was an event here at the JW, and we met him there, and he was super optimistic about space exploration. I introduced him to my kids. And he, you know, it's like that's exactly what you want a mentor to be. Is like, kids, study, work hard, you can achieve whatever you want, that kind of deal. We took a photograph with him, and then we bought something from him, and he autographed it for the kids, and it's like reach for the stars, you know, super positive, super inspirational. But each one of those guys knows that they could die just on the takeoff. And you and I have talked about a book by Scott Kelly that just came out, and it's not The Right Stuff, Endurance.
Yes.
He was inspired by another book called The Right Stuff, which was about testing pilots. But in his book Endurance, he describes takeoff in a way that I hadn't heard before, and the way he said it, and obviously you continue to read the book, and you keep going back to that description and just what it does to you, but a controlled explosion. When he said that, and then you keep reading about their positioning inside the rocket and how comfortable it is and how painful it is. There's a lot of physical pain to their knees, to their shoulders. They're sitting on top of a controlled explosion where there's this explosion underneath them. The rocket itself is being held in place until there's sufficient force buildup, and then they release and then it takes off. And there's this acceptance of for the greater cause. There's this acceptance for the completion of what this mission will do to humanity. That these guys are willing to accept. And you wanting to go to Mars, you and I have joked about, you know, the explosion and stuff like that of the rockets, but you're willing to accept that.
Yeah. Like I want to be able to like go to Mars and answer some of these questions, like, do you really know this? What made Mars die? What made all these geological features on Mars? I want to go there and study it myself and be like, hey, this is why, and this could potentially happen to Earth, but we could also maybe start living here, or then like even Europa or go to Titan. It's like I want to go and like learn that and show everyone else that like, hey, this is it.
But if we're curious about what's going to happen to Earth, I think we're heading closer to Venus than to Mars, right?
But you can learn more about Earth from any planet in the solar system because all of them share some similarities with Earth. And it's like maybe we see something on Mars that like kind of intrigues us and we're like, wait, can this happen on Earth? Is this happening on Earth? Right. So it's like it's things like that, like.
But again,
it doesn't necessarily have to directly relate back to Earth.
But again, like talking about like if we're talking about like what could possibly happen to Earth, I think like Venus it's a perfect example of where we as humans, where we're like get in, bitch, we're gonna kill you, and we have Earth in the passenger side of the car, and we're heading towards destruction. It's because Venus has a runaway green gas effect. And they're saying that, there's been sufficient studies with science where they talked about where it's almost the same size of Earth. And it has a lot of the chemical elements that Earth has. And at some points, it even looked like Earth. But it got warm. And it continues to get warm. And that's where Earth is heading.
Yeah.
But I've also talked about, I've also heard them talking about, like, yeah, there's also plans of heading to Venus. But everything is pointing towards Mars. Where's the Venus mission?
A Venus mission is not currently planned, but it's like NASA puts out announcements of opportunity that people can propose missions.
Okay.
To go do whatever. And Venus has been on the list. So, like, if you want to go to Venus, you can propose a mission to Venus. And I think right now there's just a lot of momentum for Mars because we already have so much science for Mars.
Okay.
And we have like all the rovers. We have spacecraft that orbit and study the atmosphere. So I think that's where the Mars momentum really comes from. And it's also people who invested in developing all these spacecraft that have studied Mars. They've put like a lot of time and energy into this, and they're the ones leading the industry, being like, hey, we've put time and effort into this, like we want to go here.
Right.
Versus Venus, where we haven't put as much time and effort into it. So I think that's where that's where the momentum comes
So you
from.
being so educated, right, and obviously being such a fan of Earth, of the universe, of that great mystery, right, that is out there. This is not a new conversation. This conversation has continued to happen for centuries. Flat Earth. It's so crazy because if you Google flat Earth, if you just go to YouTube and pull up flat Earth, there's this guys, and I don't really understand what their intention is. Like, why do they make these videos? It's pseudoscience, it's false science, it's flawed. But for the person that doesn't take the time to check the facts or check their data, you look at a video that's a 7-minute video and you're like, yeah, man, that fucking sounds smart. I think this guy convinced me that the Earth is flat. We know it's not flat. We know it's round. We've seen it. We've studied everything that we do, from GPS to airplanes to our satellites, is obviously based on a round Earth. But does it frustrate you? How do you feel about this push? And I think it's dying a little bit. I think it's finally starting to go back into the basement of science, right? Where now it's just going to be a hardcore group of people instead of this widespread knowledge of people really asking, is Earth really flat? Does it frustrate you that we're in like 2017 and we're talking about going to Mars and exploring other parts of the universe and so on and so forth, yet on Earth we're still questioning whether Earth is flat?
Yeah, it frustrates me. Sometimes, like, when people bring that up to me, I'm just like, why? But
don't waste my time.
Yeah.
Do you even engage in those conversations? Because for me, there's conversations within like law enforcement. There's conversations within Jiujitsu or MMA or kickboxing, whatever it might be. And for me, it's based on the person that's asking what the setting is. You know, it's I don't think that every contact needs to be necessarily an educational contact. A lot of times, it's just they're looking for a confrontation, or they're just, I don't know. It's stupid conversations. So a lot of times, I just won't even engage. You know, if it's a stupid argument with a person that is not really open to understanding facts, then I'm just I just tell them whatever you want, buddy, whatever you want, man. You know. Because they believe that, man. There's people that perception is reality, and if this is what you perceive it, you're not willing to accept facts, there's absolutely nothing I can do to change your mind. So does it sounds like it pisses you off when people are like, flat Earth, man?
I feel like most people, when they mention it to me, they're just trying to mess with me. So like, then I just like kind of laugh it off. I'm like, fine, whatever. I'm not gonna like.
Has it ever gotten serious where they're like, well, of course you're on the fucking NASA payroll, you have to say it's round?
Well,
has it gotten to that point?
There's been one time where I met somebody who like actually believed in flat Earth, and they told me it was actually this past summer when I was working at NASA in Cleveland. They were like, well, there's no NASA center in Cleveland. I was like, you're from here. How do you not know there's a NASA center here?
Right.
And they're like, well, I don't look at anything past that area because it's a government conspiracy. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to question that. I'm not going to engage in that conversation.
Right, because once you start with conspiracies, like it takes the percentage of proof. It's so little, right? It's so little. Like for you would have to actually drive them up to it and like scan your ID for it to open, for them to be like, oh, okay. Obviously, we're not going to do that. But the burden of proof is so much for you, where all they have to do is just create some nonsense conspiracy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, our argument, at first I was like, I'm not going to engage. But, like, he trained at Jiujitsu, so I saw him pretty regularly. And he would always bring it up, being like, well, why do you think the Earth is round? And I was like, why do you think the Earth is flat?
Right.
Like, it goes both ways. But whatever I would say to him, he would never consider.
Right.
And so it's like, this argument is obviously going to go nowhere. So.
Right. Yeah, there's some conversations that are not. They're useless. Like, I'm not going to engage in that. And that's why, like, a lot of times I choose to just, like, remain quiet on, like, a lot of these things, you know, because it's people, you can speak, obviously you have a lot of passion for science, but you could speak about a fact with the numbers behind it and be without passion, you know, whatever, you know, because it's fact. But when there's this conversation start happening about like flat Earth, the moon landing conspiracies and all that, there's so much emotion behind that. There's truly a lot of passion behind how these people decide to speak about it. That you have passion behind it. I admire that. There's nothing I can do to change your opinion.
Yeah.
Because I can match your passion. I'm giving you facts, and your ideas have passion. You can't change that.
No, and like I feel like sometimes he would come back to me being like, "Well, this is why you're wrong," and I was like, "I just told you a fact. I can't be wrong."
I can't be wrong. I have the numbers. Right? So that is so crazy, man. What is the latest conspiracy theory that drives you crazy? How do you feel about the whole? Okay, so the faking of the moon landing.
Okay, so that one doesn't bother me as much.
No, really?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. It's just like. So I should start with this. My grandparents don't believe that we landed on the moon.
Jesus.
They think it's a conspiracy.
Oh,
They
God.
totally think it's a conspiracy.
Really?
Yeah. And
Okay.
my dad was raised his whole entire life thinking that it's a conspiracy. But I feel like since he grew up in India, it's like he's a bit detached from that. And so they just don't believe it because it's like,
Right.
it's America. They're
So,
making stuff up.
but there was fuckery about that had to do with that mission to the moon, because we were also planning on what we're going to do if we fail. So we couldn't fail, right?
Yeah.
So they had pre-filmed footage of the capsule re-entering the atmosphere and us rescuing the astronauts, right? And then we were going to say they died of like the flu or something like that later on. But we were not going to fail that mission one way or another. We were going to safely return our guys to Earth, and then they were just going to disappear. You never heard back of them.
Yep.
But we went. We succeeded. We went. We did a bunch of missions. There's a bunch of people that walked on the moon. And then, but yeah, I think it's the fact that there was so much fuckery on the preparation of we cannot fail. And if we fail, we have these things and we're going to fool the world. Because there was pride involved in this. People don't understand the climate that was happening at the time, which was, we were racing the Russians, you know. So it was a matter of national pride, which I don't think national pride is so prevalent now. Worldwide, people are just kind of like, whatever, man. We're all humans. We don't need to like live and die for like this flag, you know. And so I think that people are just, they don't understand the fervor, the passion behind that. Like, we had to win. America had to win. Same thing with Russians. You know, we had to win. We were going to do whatever it took to win, even if we had to fool the world. It's a sentiment that it's hard to explain to today's generation. They don't get it. They don't get it, you know? I don't know. It's like even in the national anthem for Mexico, it talks about, so there's a part of the national anthem where it's pretty much says we will kill ourselves, you know, in the defense of this nation. But again, like I don't think that we understand like the passion that once existed, you know, for those things. So that's interesting. So what else? So the moon landing doesn't bother you?
No, because it's like, I don't know, I've lived with that my entire life.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So the flat Earth, hollowed Earth.
Hollowed Earth. That's a new one. I don't hear that one as much.
You haven't heard that one as much?
No.
Hollowed
But,
Earth is out there.
like, I'm starting to hear a bit more of it, and I honestly don't know what to tell those people. Like, why? Why do you think Earth is hollow? And then I've never gotten a straight response. So I
Right.
don't know.
So, I think we want to end with this, man. Our plans for alien contact. I've read a bunch about this, and there is actually a plan in place for what NASA, or even worldwide. I think this document that I read was from the UN, where what we're supposed to do if we contact life from another planet. Are we in the right path with that? What do you think? What is he? So, for example, guys like Carl Sagan was very much pro contacting life. You know, he took a bunch of shit for the designs that he put on those discs. You know, like it showed the naked body. You know, it showed the composite of our body. We're carbon-based animals. You know, we're mammals. And he kind of like made like a map of our universe, like, hey, find us here. But then there's other guys, there's other scientists that are very much opposed to contacting, like saying, hey, we're here because we have a track of, listen, this is what happens when a greater force meets a lesser force. You kill it and you take its resources, right? Our plans for contacting life, are we in the right path?
I don't like. This is something where I'm conflicted on personally, because I think we should contact life, but I have no faith in humanity. I think if we contact life, we'll destroy them, or vice versa.
Right.
More it's the former. Like, we'll destroy them.
We'll destroy. We'll try.
Yeah.
We'll fucking. I tried.
So like in that sense, I don't want them to die for no reason. So then I think we shouldn't contact life. But like, we could learn so much from them, and like they could learn so much from us, and we could expand our exploration, we could expand our knowledge of the universe, like, so I personally want to contact them, but I'm conflicted because I don't want them to die.
Right.
So it's
but just like you, like I have, when it comes down to that, I think we have a very animalistic approach to things when it comes down to like going back to the movie Avatar. Like, we gave no fucks about those people.
Yeah.
Right. And we murdered them, or we tried to take the resources, so on and so forth. So just like you, I would hope that they would send people like you, shit, man, people like me that just wants, hey man, I want to learn from you. Teach me your ways. What do you think? How long have you guys been around? You know, where are you in your society? You know, how does your society work? Do you guys have Jiujitsu? You know? But I'm nervous. I'm nervous that obviously they're gonna send a fucking four-star general, four-star general with a fucking cigar. It's gonna be like, let's kill these fucking blue bastards, And it's like, no, get out of the room, get out of the room.
I look at our society and just like even America itself, like, we don't treat people equally. Why would we treat another?
Look what we did to the Native Americans to this day. We're like, hey, there's your rest.
Yeah.
It's 2017. We still have the word reservation in our dialogue. Fuck, man. We're gonna go to their planet and put them on reservations, and then rewrite history, because that's what we did. We rewrite history to make us to take the evil out of what we did. It's so crazy, man. I mean, I take a lot of pride like teaching my kids about Aztec culture, and the Aztecs did the same. The reason they were toppled over, it's because Hernan Cortez allied himself with a bunch of neighboring tribes that hated the Aztecs. Hated them. Why? Because the Aztecs were like, we need a human sacrifice, get up there. Non-stop. Non-stop, we were killing people. The greatest warrior wasn't the one that killed the most, is the one that captured the most to bring him back and kill them. So, I don't know, man. We'll stay positive. We'll hope for the best when it comes down to contacting aliens. Namrah, thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
You had a lot of fun?
Yeah.
I did too. Thank you, man. That's so awesome.